the Evolution Security Podcast. Once again, you are listening to the EvoSec podcast. It is a great time anytime I get to hang out with my twin brother, even though we are, 1,300 miles away, which I drove straight through about a month ago. That was a long-ass drive, I'll tell you what.
Better man than me on that one.
Man, we had a blast.
Absolutely.
Hanging out together and shooting, but it is a blessing to be able to do this show together. Now, Eric, I wanted to jump right in. We have tonight we have one of our Gear Mindset episodes. Let me spit that out. And this is going to be a fun one because we got a few unique topics to talk about, and I'm excited to jump right in. First, what I want to do, I'm pretty excited about this, Eric, but I want to first mention one of our sponsors, and that is Tennecore. They make, in my opinion, the best concealed carry gear on the market. There's some great companies out there, and there are some companies that I recommend straight off the bat if for some reason Jeff and his crew don't make a holster for the gun you have. But to me, Tennecore is the best gear. And I just wanted to mention, Eric, real quick, that the relationship that we have with Jeff and Tennecore goes back before Tennecore actually started. Now, I believe he had the Tennecore company, but the holster and gear company was just in its infancy, and we had the opportunity multiple times to train with Jeff because he's legit. He trains, he tests his gear, he tests his skill set. He went to every single ECQC that you and I hosted in Olympia, Washington, and it was pretty fun. One of those, I think it was the second one we hosted, he brought a prototype of the Velo holster. Now, I do want to show that, of course, this was, in my opinion, the best appendix carry holster for a medium-sized pistol on the market. This is the Velo 4. Just incredible features, but you know what? I'm pretty excited to show that I received my Tennecore Velo 5 yesterday. Eric, by chance, I don't want to rub it in. Have you gotten yours yet?
No, I haven't. I'm sure it's any time in the mail because I know that Jeff sent them out at the same time. But of course, I live on the East Coast, so and let's face it, with Helene and all
That's
the other
true.
weather going on, it's slowed down. The postal service and shipping. So I'm not scared, but I was hoping. I came home today from work. I'd even been asking my wife, "Hey, was there a Tennecore package come in?" And she's like, "No, not yet." So
And
I'm pumped for you. Mine will be in any time though.
New toys are always a lot of fun. Let me show my little Boresight Glock is cleared, but I wanted to show a couple of things, Eric. This Velo 5 it really is a step up from the Velo 4. Now, the Velo 4, again, it's like, how could it have gotten better? Because, I mean, it concealed better than any of the holsters that I had used before, and this one's even better. Now, there's just a couple of cool features I want to point out real quick, and that is the fact that, number one, the retention screws are not connected to where the clips were. You remember how the clip on the Velo 4, they're integral to the tension screws. That they have changed that, and they now have 3 sections that you can put your clips on. Now, to me, one of the biggest benefits of the Velo 4, and now even this does it even more, is how wide you can have the clips, and
Yeah,
specifically
that's
how
awesome.
wide you can have the clip where the optic is. And that alone concealed optics better for me.
Well,
Now,
Aaron, can I make one point
yeah.
that you mentioned about that the clips or that the retention screw is not integral to the screws for the clips, which I really didn't have any complaints with the Velo 4.
Oh no, not
But I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to be
yeah.
rude there. But one thing that would happen is there was a real fine line of where I got my retention and my clip would stay tight enough to where
Yeah.
it wouldn't move and adjust. I mean, it didn't happen very often at all, but that's what when I saw that was a feature, I was like, man, that is awesome. That'll be great.
Well, and yeah, I mean, it does work great. Like you said, that wasn't really a big issue, but it still is better to
It
have
just
them
makes it
separate.
better. Yep.
And now, of course, the camming bar was molded into the Velo 4. Well, now he has the 3 different sizes of camming bars, and not only are there 3 different sizes, you can move that camming bar up and down and at an angle actually, and I have that perfectly lined up with the clip in my belt.
Nice.
That makes a big deal, and I worked a lot with this holster last night, and I think I've got it pretty well dialed in. But I ended up feeling that the small camming bar adjusted high did the best at balancing out the grip of the pistol versus the optic. Eric, all in all, too, and I don't want to mention before I go on, is that the molded wedge is just a little bit smaller, but it's still. I'm telling you, Eric, this holster does conceal a bit better than even the Velo 4.
Wow, that's saying something, man.
So,
Because yeah.
I am really stoked about it. Jeff, thanks for putting out great gear, and it was awesome getting that in the mail yesterday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I'm hoping mine comes in tomorrow because it's Friday. So, and I'm teleworking tomorrow, so I can I can be playing around with it as I'm monitoring my phone and my emails. But Aaron, I did just want to reiterate a neat story, and I know I've told it on the air here before, but you may recall my neighbor that lived right next door to us. That unfortunately he sold his house and moved back to Fort Campbell there at Fifth Group. But he's a special forces soldier and a damn good shooter, man. He and I had been talking for so long about going to the range together, and finally, about I don't know, a month or two before he and his wife moved, we finally made it happen. And actually, it was his wife that set it up for Father's Day for him. But man, it was an incredible time, like I said before. But one of the coolest stories were we were kind of getting some gear ready because we were going in his truck the evening before when we were packing our gear up, that is. And he comes out there and I recognize the holster that he set his pistol down. I said, "Hey, is that a Velo?" And he said, "Man, have you heard about this company Tenacore?" I'm like, "I sure have." and and I told him, I said, incidentally, when Jeff Mao, the owner and founder of Tenacore, I mentioned that, he had been to all the ECQCs we hosted out in Washington. And I said, we got to actually be a part of the testing of those in ECQC. And he goes, "So you mean you were part of building the prototype?" I said, no, we didn't build anything. Nah, Jeff just brought the holsters to the ECQC because, again, talking about pressure testing, man, Jeff brought the prototype that was about to go into production. He brought it to the pressure testing venue for, dealing with your gun being yanked out of or try to be yanked out of your holster or your belt.
Oh yeah, I
And yeah,
remember that young man using that holster in a few Evos. I remember
Yep.
it right now.
Yep.
So
Yeah, awesome.
make sure again that you go to tenacor.com. They have a lot of amazing gear. My favorite now is the Velo 5, and that zero belt is as good as it gets
You
too.
beat me to it. It's like pick you up a zero belt at the same time you pick up your new Velo 5.
Yes, shout out to our buddy Jeff and the Tenacor crew.
So moving on, Aaron, I would like to congratulate you on your Rangemaster Master Instructor Development certification, man. It's a big deal, man.
Thanks, bro. I'm glad that and honored that I was able to do that. Tom is a living legend, and the certifications under him for the instructor development courses are pretty well regarded, and to have gone through the basic, advanced, and now the master, it is pretty cool, man. I'm glad I got to do it.
Well, I'm just bummed that I didn't get to go with you because of work reasons, but
Yeah, bro.
I
Remember. I had assumed you were going for like 9 months. I thought you had bought your ticket, and I was like, Eric. So when we're going to the IDC here in Oklahoma, what are you talking about, Aaron? I'm not going. I don't want to go too far off on that, but that was funny. I thought you were going forever.
Yeah, I think it looks like I'm going to be taking the one in March down in Florida, which is kind of cool. I like Florida, man. Even though it's not doing very well, unfortunately. Prayers out to all those people in Florida right now.
Yeah, and Tom and Lynn Givens,
yeah, absolutely,
are down there, and I just saw John Hearn gave an update that they're okay, but they are without power. So
good deal. That's good to hear, man. So, man, you got you a AAR to go over, don't you? Well, action after action review.
Yeah, let's go over a few things, because I would highly recommend again that people take these courses if you are if you're interested in getting some certifications for instruction. They're pretty amazing classes.
And well known as a quality instructor being produced out of those courses for certain.
That's right. Tom has some extremely high standards, and I'll tell you, he has high standards when you're there on the firing line. Absolutely. He is all business the whole time, I can tell you. And there's the class itself was great. The shooting, of course, was quite challenging. But Eric, I think you and I agree, in classes like this, my favorite part is the lectures.
Oh yeah.
And so this was no different. There was approximately about a 3-hour, I think, if I recall correctly, history over the approximately last 100 years, over 100 years of the evolution of firearms instruction.
Cool.
Tom covered the pioneers, and of course, something that, and when I say of course, that's incorrect. Something I didn't really think about was that he covered a lot of figures that negatively influenced instruction over the years. And amazing enough, it was some individuals that kind of influenced the FBI. And you know how a lot of stuff, law enforcement and then therefore civilian training kind of rolls from the FBI. Eric, you need to take you need to take a look at. Forgive me, I'm looking through my notes. I can't remember his actual name, but his first name he was nicknamed Jelly, and he had a technique called the FBI crouch. it's hard to find information on that, but you want to talk about something appalling when it comes to technique and how many years they used it. I mean, I know people got killed because of that. So,
yeah, that is crazy. So, Aaron, let me see if it was, so Jacob Aldolphus man, I'm going to screw that up. Bryce is what I'm seeing.
That is it. And his nickname was Jelly, and it was because he was kind of a sharp dressed guy. And I believe that when, based on from what I remember from what Tom said, is that you had spit shined shoes, they would call you Jelly.
Interesting.
Or something of that nature. But yeah, so the great pioneers and a handful of pretty poor influences on firearms instruction. But I mean, it was a fascinating history. I believe Tom even teaches that portion at TACCon sometimes, and he teaches it just that portion sometimes. But then we had a lecture on, of course, what is the disappearing art and instruction of revolvers. He went over the pros and cons of revolvers and the actual complicated mechanics within revolvers. The action within revolvers is real complicated, and the way he put it, it's essentially a wind-up watch on the inside. And I did not know that. I just was. It was something I was excited to get to learn more about, which was revolvers, and I had a few difficulties with some of the reload techniques. Shooting just fine, but some of the reloading techniques I struggled a bit with.
Well, but Eric, I think you'll agree. We are absolutely products of the modern auto-loading pistol, but the revolver is important for us to know better. We're going to have folks show up in our classes. I haven't had any yet, which is surprising, but I know you said that you had one.
Yeah, I've literally had one person show up with the revolver, and she was about a 70-year-old lady that was maybe less than 100 pounds. And she brought a pistol similar to this one that I have right here that I borrowed for the class. Now, this is a pretty sweet pistol. This is from my father-in-law, and this is a Smith & Wesson Combat Masterpiece. Did I mention? Sorry, it's from 1967.
Nice,
and it's an incredible piece.
Oh, it's beauty, man. Can I see the grip? I'm curious about
dude. It is 100% original.
Man, that's a beautiful revolver, man.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure these are worth in the $3,500 to $4,000 range.
Wow.
Real nice pistol for my father-in-law to loan me to take a course with.
Aaron, what ammo did you run in it?
I ran, forgive me, it's funny, it was the exact ammo that I had texted Tom a couple of questions about a few things, and he said to get some specific federal 130 grain ball ammo, and
you jumped on and bought it.
Oh yeah, Tom told me to get it. I got that ammo, and it ran great.
Well, that's a beaut, man. How's the trigger on it?
Oh, bro, it's amazing. Now, of course, the single action, you freaking breathe on it, and it's incredible. Now, the double action is fairly heavy, but still really smooth. Now, we didn't use any single action, of course. So it's all double action. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, practicing with this pistol, I believe, helped my trigger press on my Glock too.
I've heard a lot of our mentors talk about that. what's funny, Aaron, is did you have something else to say about that pistol? And
No, no, go ahead.
So, incidentally enough, when I started thinking about taking that class, this is a while back when we had even talked about doing it together. I'm like, I need to do something with that Ruger GP100 that I bought real cheap from Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Because I personally would have rather taken it with my Smith & Wesson 642, but like a dummy, sometimes we just get into this mood, and the Glock 43 came out. I'm like, man, I don't think I'll use this revolver anymore. I think I'll just sell it to help pay for the 43. Man, I'm so pissed at myself over that, because that's probably what I would have used. But maybe I would use this one too. But anyway, this is a Ruger GP100 in 357 Magnum. Of course, I'm going to run 38 in it is the plan. But I mean, it if the audience can see there, it's missing the rear sight. And part of the problem, when I bought this from Dad, I paid dirt cheap from him. He was getting rid of a couple of his guns, or a few of his guns, help him pay for some of his custom car. So he's
I
getting rid of a
remember
few
that.
things. And he was just going to sell it cheap to somebody he knew. And I'm like, whoa, hold on, Dad. I want to keep that in the family. So I said, I'll take it off your hands. But anyway, Aaron, he was using it for hunting. He had taken a couple of deer with it, and there was a scope mount on it. And I tried to remove those screws, and I thought what I saw looked like red Loctite on them. I'm like, man, somebody used red Loctite on these. And I remember Dad saying he had a gunsmith install that for him. But sure enough, man, you and I were talking. I'm like, man, I'm going to go drill those freaking heads off those screws and see if I can get that off. And of course I did. But you probably can't see it on video here, but there's red Loctite that's been
Cemented on the top of that thing.
Yeah, and I could see the red Loctite on the screws that I had to, because when I pulled the mount off after drilling those heads off, of course I was left with about 1/8 of an inch of a screw, and I just used vice grips to take them the rest of the way out. But yeah, I'm kind of excited about this. I think I'm gonna change the grip. I might go with the G10 type grip, and I got to get a new rear sight, and I'm probably going to replace the front sight with a high vis, or I might just paint it, save some money. But I kind of am interested in making it into a kind of cool rig. We'll
Bro,
see. But yeah, this is what I'm going to use for the Master IDC in March.
I did want to say, as everybody, our longtime listeners know, that I had eye surgery and a couple years ago and needed to go to all red dots. But what was cool, of course, there ain't no red dot on this pistol.
Right.
And this was the most I shot irons in a long time. Man, I shot this just fine.
Really?
If I've got good light, I can run irons just fine. So
man, that's good
that
to
was
hear.
that was fun to be able to do that. And so on that note, bro, since the takeaway was that I need a lot of work on revolver, especially the reloading techniques, and so what I'm probably going to do is I want to get something that I can go pretty NPE if I want to. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a Ruger LCR in 22.
Nice.
And put there's a pretty cool hoe grip that I found that is that would be a black G10, so it kind of blends in with my black undershirt if I happen to flash my boobies or something. But yeah, so I'm most likely gonna get one of those, a nice small 22 revolver. I don't have any 22s for one thing, and that's a real good, as Daryl Bulkey calls it, my problem, not your problem gun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it gets work done, man. Flat out.
Oh yeah.
We've talked about this before, and And anybody that wants to really do some research is the 22 long rifle has killed a lot of people and has done a
Mm.
lot of good work. Again, Chuck Haggard talks about that all the time as well. So,
Well, speaking of, my next note here was that once I grab that, I'm definitely gonna get into one of Chuck's snub nose classes.
nice.
Well, Eric, just kind of moving on to towards the end here of this class, man, there were a lot, of course, as you would expect at a Rangemaster Master Instructor development course. There were a lot of really good shooters and a lot of really cool people. Right? You always
Yeah,
make
always.
friends at these events. Now, it was pretty cool. We had a chance to shoot the master. What did he call it? The Pistol Master
Yep.
Award. So we got to try that. There were a handful of students that actually passed it. I mean, I think it was like 4 or 5 of the
And,
students that did.
and I may be wrong. I thought I saw that, forgive me, we can correct this, but I think I saw Tom said there was like 6 or 7, maybe 8.
That may be the case,
Yep.
bro.
I have to
I
look
was
on
not I was not one of them, but
but you tried.
oh yeah, it was fun. It was fun giving it a whirl. So yeah, that was pretty cool. Now on that one, there's one pretty difficult course of fire that's 30 rounds on a bull, and then if you pass that at 95%, you can move on to the next, of course, more difficult course of fire that you also have to pass at 95%. So a little bit higher standards for sure.
Cool.
So congratulations to all the people in the class that made that. Now on my quals, I did on the main qual, I did fairly well. I actually, so my final score was a 97%. I actually only had one shot down, so I would have had about, I guess, 99%. But I did one of the shots right about the whistle, excuse me. You know how Tom uses the whistle. So I got a little bit over par there on one of them. So it took me down to 97.
Do you recall the string?
I remember exactly what the string is. It was, you had to, from the low ready, shoot a headshot perfectly in 1.5 seconds.
Ah, yep.
And I had practiced that a million times. It had never been over par.
Yeah, that's a lot of time.
I had
Mm-hmm.
shot, because you can find versions of the different quals now. They are never the same. Tom changes it up every time.
Yep,
But
as he should.
there's some things that are similar. I knew about that 1.5 second headshot. Like I said, I practiced it, and never went over par except for on the time it really counted. But hey, man, I'm proud of how I did on it. Really, just only one shot down in that one over par. Now, here's where I had a squeaker. I'm not sure what level of bullseye course it was, but I made a 90.5 on that. So, hey, I made it, but that I clearly need to work more on my bullseye and accuracy shooting. But that's how the quals went.
Awesome job though. However, man, that's excellent, man. I'm proud of you.
Thanks, man. I'm glad to do it. Glad I got to do it. Excuse me. So, bro,
Yeah.
you got a little bit more gear stuff.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out again, our hearts and our prayers are with all the victims of Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton out there. I mean, man, it has been, talk about a hard 2 weeks, man. It's incredible. And one of the things that it always reminds us is how important some basic emergency preparation is, right? And I'll just kind of skip ahead in some of my notes here because, in fact, I know a lot of our audience members because the folk, we kind of have a niche. We have a niche audience. We really do. And I would bet that a majority of our listeners have probably what's on the FEMA's emergency emergency pack list, which is essentially just 3 days worth of, water, food, so on and so forth, your meds, so on and so forth. But there might be some people out there that don't. Maybe they're new listeners. Maybe that they know they need to have some kind of emergency prep. And frankly, the list on FEMA.gov is not a bad list to go by. And they have some real good guidance in there. And I would expect that, even being FEMA, which we have our certain feelings about the leadership, the good, the people down at the bottom trying to do the work within the rules are good people and mean well. So I will have that link in the show notes. So if you don't have any kind of emergency prep, just jump on that list, read through it. It's not long, maybe 14, 15 pages, but you can go on there and they have a buy item list, flashlight, food, water, so on and so forth. So I won't go into those details, which, we had a show about this not too long ago, and there are all kinds of awesome sources out there.
But that FEMA one is a great one to start with.
I mean, there's no reason, if you don't have anything, is just to start there. And folks that do have stuff, go over it again. Make sure there's not some stuff that you can't tighten up on. And
maybe put together a couple of packs for your family or family members,
right? And Aaron, I mean, they go as far as to say you should have 3 of them per person. Well, let's just put it this way: 1 for the house, 1 for your car or your vehicle, and 1 for your office. Which, I argue I count my pack that's in my vehicle 1 as well, but you never know what could happen, that you could be separated from your vehicle for some reason, even within the complex of your office.
Yeah,
for some reason, there could be some reason, I will also mention this, Aaron, which I've mentioned on here before. This is Mike Glover's prepared book. And it is, it just flat out is a good, quick reference guide. Has a lot of good information. He bases a lot of his stories and kind of anecdotes along the way with a lot of his special operations time. But it's a good read. It's a quick read, and it's got some excellent stuff about homestead security under hard times. It's about preparation for all kinds of, or any type of an emergency, right? Any scenario you can think of. So I just wanted to mention that again in the show notes. Now, for kind of closing, Aaron, we're getting close to where we were trying to be, about an hour. I also wanted to mention, during these hurricanes, and specifically Helene, ham radio has been critical. Like, if it wasn't for ham radio, I'm not sure, Aaron, how many more people would have died. I'm just being frank. When stuff like this happen, power goes down on a massive scale. You have flooding, you have damage to equipment, you have all of these issues that, comms, cell phones are almost non-existent in certain areas. Some of them are spotty. But the ham radio operators came to the freaking rescue. Starting this, repeater system. Just so happens that the repeater was announcing itself. This is a repeater that's down the highway from me here, but it ties into I would say a third of North Carolina. So, but this ham radio, this little handheld here, being able to communicate over repeaters, that's what they've been doing, is using repeaters in the area. That stayed on the air, of course, because most repeaters, they have emergency power, so they stay up. So, and yeah, so I mean, anything from being able to find lost people, help lost people find their loved ones, try to communicate with people to try to get folks out for rescue. I mean, you just name it. Coordinating supplies, you know, because it's one of those things where until you don't have communications, and especially in emergencies, you don't realize how crucial it is. And Ham came to the rescue. And I am also putting in the show notes, and I'm going to see just on a whim here to see if there's any traffic on there right now. I can't hit this specific repeater with this radio because I don't have line of sight to that one. If my repeater's tied into it, then I would be able to, but this specific one, I cannot hit with my specific radio. But there's a repeater in the area of, I think it's Mount Mitchell. I think it is. I should have had that note sitting here. Forgive me. I believe I'm correct on that. Near Asheville, North Carolina. It's called November 2 Golf Echo into GE, and it's at 145.19 megahertz. Let me see if there's any traffic on this, because you can listen to this. I've got link so folks can go on there and listen to some of the traffic, man. You know, there's people reporting looting, people reporting stolen firearms and all these other things, or even just finding. I heard one earlier where they were mentioning somebody just flat out found a firearm, probably, flooded down the road or something,
Wow.
in the mud. So let me see if I can, bear with me a second, Aaron, because sometimes there's a commercial on this when it comes up. So let that go through. But yeah, Aaron, I want to encourage our audience members as this is coming up, if there's any traffic, really consider getting your technician's license. And I think I'm going to do a little more pushing of folks trying to get their license, because it's not that difficult. And frankly, if somebody spends a week or maybe two just studying every now and then, that they can pass it. And I am putting in the show notes the hamstudy.org link. It's a free source where you can go on and study for your ham license, your technician. You can get your extra and your general and your extra beyond that as well. But all you need to get started is your technician.
Yeah, it sounds like just the fact that, just like the fact that I finally got my reloading set up after I don't know how many years knowing that I needed to. I think I need to get this ham radio license and a system squared away, don't I?
Well, man, I will be glad to help you. Yeah, that I think you should, man, to be frank with you. And then I can help you with building a small HF rig that you and I can make sure that we have antenna systems that we can communicate directly to each other.
Oh, sweet. That'd be fun.
Let's try to make that happen, Aaron. I'd love that. And I'll also mention a app that I used for my because I don't have my extra. I haven't wanted to really spend the time to do that. I probably need to, but it's just extra bandwidth in some of the HF bands. So there's an app that I used called Ham Test Prep. And it's probably like $4 or $5. You want to buy the version. There's a Lite version that lets you go through the questions, but you buy the versions that let you practice the tests.
Okay.
So that I really recommend, just spending $5 on that, because you can, I'd study on the road. Hold on a second.
North Carolina. Tail tone is 107.2. Thursday, October 10th.
Yeah, so that I think that's the owner of the repeater up there. I'll turn that down because I hear some traffic on, or I did here. Hold on a second, Aaron. I think I should.
Is held every Thursday night at 8:30 p.m. except for the last two Thursdays. But my name
Can you hear that, Aaron?
I'm in Mead, North Carolina. My call sign is KI4ZEK. That's Kilo India 4 Zulu Echo Kilo, and I'll be your host this evening for the 190 swap net.
So I wonder what there's. This doesn't.
The purpose of the swap net is to help amateurs buy, swap.
Okay, so they're doing a regular net earlier. I heard them doing some traffic for the the recovery. So the repeater's still going to operate on normal traffic that the hams will do. But if the emergency people need to come on, they can preempt them. But yeah, just earlier before we went on the air, I listened for some time, and they were talking about all of the actions going on, moving supplies up into the mountains, helping with civilian helicopters, and even interfacing with National Guard when doing their work as well. So too bad it's not some of that traffic, but folks can go to the show notes, click on that, and listen to it sometime during the day. It gets real active later in the evening for some reason, but traffic's on there throughout the day.
Well, bro, good information. Now, before we get off, Eric, we just again need to say, let's all in the audience, let's all send our prayers out to the people on the East Coast, North Carolina, Florida. People are going through stuff that they've never expected they would ever go. Well, let me put it this way. I'm sure it's come to their mind before, but just like anything else, you think, hey, that ain't going to happen to me. But there's lots of people out there right now where it has happened to them, and it can be devastating, tragic, and just frankly life-changing for a lot of people. So we're thinking about those people, and we're praying for those people, and we just pray for the safety and recovery of anyone that's missing, and people to hang tight and be positive. I'm sure that some of our listeners are in that area. So shout out to you guys. We hope you're safe. But that's all I got tonight, brother.
Yeah, and Aaron, I had thought about pointing out some negative points about the federal response to this, but you know what, man? I don't think I'm going to talk about it because there's plenty of other ways to look at it. Bottom line is that the response between Katrina, I'm sitting there saying, and I'll just say the numbers real quick. I'm just not going to be hyperbolic about it. So this is comparing the federal response between Katrina and now up to Helene. So after Katrina, within 3 days, because I was a soldier at that point, we sent some teams out there. I mean, it was like the second it happened, man, we were spinning people up, ready to get them out the door. So, Aaron, there were over 60,000 members of the U.S. military that helped with the recovery after Katrina. That was 18,000 active duty and 43,000 National Guard. Wow. That's a massive amount of individuals to help with that. And Aaron, that's part of what, especially the National Guard, when they're not federal, they've been they're deployable. They're actually state assets first, right? Mm-hmm. So the governor can call them up. So that's typically a function of the National Guard is national emergencies, but active duty also obviously can be called out. Aaron, imagine I think the number's somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000 helicopters in the U.S. military.
Okay.
And if I have, being a veteran myself, if I have those numbers wrong, forgive me. But I believe that was one of the last figures I saw. That's at least close. But imagine the utility and necessity of those choppers. Man, a Chinook, man, it is amazing what you can fit in a Chinook, and even a Black Hawk, man. I've gotten on Black Hawks downrange before where I was in a line trying to get on a chopper to go somewhere else. Then you're kind of like on standby. And I'm looking in this line of 10, 11, 12 people with all their A and B bags, massive bags. We all got on that chopper and took off, man.
Wow.
It's amazing what you can fit on them. That's just a Black Hawk, but a Chinook, man, I've, flown around both Iraq and Afghanistan and those things with massive cargo and a lot of people. So my point is that's how important that is, and why the federal government and the states definitely should be energized, and they have been, but let's just give a little bit more levity to the difference. So right now, Aaron, and this happened, active duty came like a week, 5 days a week later before they started being deployed. There's about 1,500 active duty troops, and then about 6,100 National Guardsmen. Just a fraction. Now, I'm not saying, Katrina, it's arguable, may have done more damage, but let's just say, I don't want to get into comparisons of what did. The point is that back then we had that many folks on the ground from the U.S. military. Why do we have so few right now in response to Helene?
Yeah.
I don't get it. And that's all I'll say. I said I wasn't going to be hyperbolic, so I'm going to try to stick to that. And it's just something to think about. Well, bro, man, this has kind of been fun, man. Of course, It always is. I think we got some good information out.
Yes, fun show, good information, fun chat with you, bro. I am going to go capture some more digital captures of one of my amps.
Oh, nice.
And that means I'm going to crank up some sine waves, etc., into one of my amps and make my family mad at me.
Nice. Cool. Well, man, enjoy that. I'll talk at you tomorrow sometime, I'm sure.
All right, bro. Love you.
Love you too, man.